we try to live, at least I did, these compartmentalized lives where my financial life can be separate from my work life, which can be separate from my marriage, which can be separate from my relationship with my kids and my friendships. It's really all connected.
Welcome back to the Money Pig Podcast, brought to you by Goodwin Investment Advisory, where our mission is to lead people to financial peace, independence, and generosity. I'm your host, Reed Trigo, and today on the show, we're joined by GIA founder Tim Goodwin and a friend of GIA, Nate Mirabella, who hosts the Chase the Peace podcast. We're going to have a discussion about financial anxiety. Welcome, Nate.
Thank you so much for having me, guys.
Yeah,
I'm honored to be here.
We're excited. We're excited to have you.
And as a disclosure, to make our compliance people happy, Nate is a client, not being compensated for this appearance.
He's just being awesome.
Just being a great guy.
Yep.
Check the box. There we go.
That's right. Well, good, Nate. Good to see you. I'm glad you just got done with your, your annual financial review or whatever you did with your advisor.
Me too. Always feel better after that.
Oh, good. It reduces some financial anxiety then.
Huh.
I would say it absolutely does.
Well, that is great because that's what we want to talk about today. And just kind of your take on, we want to talk about financial anxiety and chasing the peace a little bit. Talk to me about what do you think causes financial anxiety for people?
I think feeling out of control, right, is in any area of your life can produce anxiety. And I think it's so easy to get out of control with money because it goes so many places. It's, you have, if you own real estate, you have a mortgage, you have bills to pay. It's easy to feel out of control if you're not intentional about taking control. So I think, go ahead, Tim.
Sorry, when you said that, it made me think of something that Dave Ramsey always says, because a lot of times you're like, man, I'm making all this money, but then wondering where it went.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's part of like feeling a little out of control with it. Like, man, we're trying really hard to earn this income and to make this income. And as you track it over time, you're a lot of times making more money than you've ever made before, but then you're without a plan, you're wondering where it all went.
Where is it going?
Yeah.
And so there's a direct connection between understanding where your money's going and the peace associated with it.
I think there's a lot of pressure as well. And I don't know. I don't always know where that pressure is coming from. I don't know if we can blame our parents or if we can blame society or we can blame school or just blame ourselves. But from wherever it's coming from, right, there is this pressure. It's like, okay, you should be saving for retirement and you should be paying off your debt and you should be, paying off your car and maybe saving for college if you have kids. And, you should be giving and being generous and, and so,
And
go ahead.
You have to look at least as rich as your neighbor.
Okay, exactly. Yeah. Like there's got to get to like your cars and your clothes and your house. There's this pressure, and we all know about it. And I don't really like to blame any particular group because it's probably a multitude of things that are coming in. But we kind of allow that pressure on ourselves as well.
Well, I think there's the societal pressures, which you mentioned, which is like, I need to wear clothes. I need to have transportation. I want to live in a nice-ish home, to have my, family live in. I want to keep up with my neighbors. So there's the societal component, and then there's that potentially family component, or this I know I ought to component, which is like, I should be doing all these things. So there's the pressure to keep up with the Joneses. Then there's this pressure to do what you've been told you need to do.
And I think there's an uncertainty factor too, right? So like if uncertainty is increasing for you, that's going to increase that anxiety. COVID-19 increased all kinds of uncertainty about our future, and that something like a virus can have wreak that much havoc on your lives and on the entire world. But if there's increased uncertainty about your employment or increased uncertainty about rising costs of goods because inflation is high, I think those are going to add to that financial anxiety as well.
Absolutely. And before we started recording, we talked about, the markets, there's so many things that can influence markets that you have no control over that can, even if you're making all the right choices, you're doing all the right things, it can still be stressful, you know, to either watch your balance, you know, where you're just like, you know, it's a gut punch, right? And, but so I guess I'm not going to sum up anything here, but there's a certain extent of anxiety as it relates to finances that we absolutely have control over with the decisions we make today.
Yeah. So is this, well, go ahead, Tim.
Sorry. So one more thing to add. I think something that adds to like just the, I was going to say like the exponent or whatever of the amount of financial anxiety we have is a lot of times we feel like we have to do it alone. Like when you're going at it alone, like I just had to figure this out by myself.
Yeah.
Right. Or like you were saying, the stock market just crashed and my 401k and I've got to figure it out like that. I'm supposed to figure out all this stuff by myself, and whether you're equipped or not. I mean, I have a finance degree and I had trouble getting my wife and I to behave on our own budget. You know what I mean? But I had all the education. Even when you have the education, it's still like the habits and the understanding and the belief's not there.
That's so interesting too, because if you go to lunch with your buddies or whatever, you'll talk about all sorts of different things. You don't usually talk about money. It's like, you know, so to your point, it is something you feel like you navigate alone, or like you have to navigate alone.
I don't know why it's so taboo. I mean, sometimes we're unpacking the finances with a couple and they're telling us things that they haven't even talked to their spouse about.
Wow.
Money their spouse doesn't even know exists. And is that where you're going to say something to that degree?
Yeah, sort of, because I was thinking about the clients I've met with many, many times. You know, it depends on their upbringing around money, not whether they talk about it or not, but just their perception of, I don't know, how much is a lot? And they get, you know, they grow up, they're married, they got 3 or 4 kids, he's making more money than he ever thought he would because he's making $105,000 a year. And that's a good amount of money, but it's still going to be tight with a wife and 4 kids.
Absolutely.
It's going to be tight.
Just the way it is.
But you know what? I remember, this is one specific client I remember, and he just was like, how is it? I'm making this much money. And I'm like, oh man, you're just spending more than $50 an hour.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You're making $50 an hour, but you're spending probably
It's
a little
tough.
more. So
Yeah.
it's tricky. And I think that creates anxiety for them because they don't know. They need somebody to walk along with them and see. So, okay, so how do people avoid this? Is this anxiety, the stress that comes with money? Because I think we all have it at one point or another, but can you avoid it?
Yes. Not completely.
Nate is here for the magic formula, ladies and gentlemen. I love his confidence. He's like, yes.
Here's the thing: you can't eliminate it completely. There's the things that we're never going to be able to control that are going to happen. We mentioned some of those already, but I think the decisions you make today are going to influence your tomorrow in every area of your life, right? So the decisions we make today as it relates to money, and that's the urge to spend. That's hang on, I have to refer to my my notes here because there's one thing I want to mention here, and that is that what you want right now is rarely what you ultimately want. So resist the urge to spend on something and justify it in the name of being spontaneous, right? So we all want to take nice trips and nice vacations. I want to take my wife, you know, all over the world to these amazing places, you know, but I can't just on a whim decide to do that. I need to prepare for it, right? I need to save for it.
So I was talking with someone a couple days ago about, and she had shared with me that she had made a large financial decision that was bad, got them in a bunch of credit card debt. And we started talking a little bit about budgeting. And I was reminded of something that Alicia, the YNAB certification coach,
I did an episode with you earlier. Yeah.
So she said, when it comes to money, you can buy anything you want. You just can't buy everything you want. And if you think about it, that relates to other areas of your life. Food. You can eat anything you want. You just can't eat everything you want. Time. You can do anything you want. You just can't do everything you want. Right? And it is good. It's like the decisions we make now about how much we eat or do or spend totally are going to make a difference down the road.
I think it's huge, the delayed gratification and just, shaping exactly. You can have these things, but it's how much of it or it's when. And it's tough because we can always like justify. I think that was key that you said that, justify the spontaneousness or just that you deserve it or something.
100%. I work hard. I deserve it.
Yeah, and you do.
Absolutely.
You do work hard,
Yeah.
But I think what gets challenging too about money is that now that it's like almost entirely electronic, like it's so little physical, tangible money that when it becomes electronic, it feels infinite. You know that because if you've had $100 bill or a $50 or a $20 bill in your pocket and you go to break it, you feel it. Apparently, I remember learning this through Dave Ramsey, like the brain science actually shows pain centers in your brain going off when you break large bills.
Wow.
Where when you're running your credit card or your debit card, it's like there's no lights on, there's no pain sensors firing. It's just that infinite feeling of this electronic money. And so I think that is a different challenge that our generations are dealing with than past generations that got paid and had a whole wad of cash, and that's how they paid their bills. And you could really see your stack dwindle down. You could see your big bills break down. When it's finite, I think it's a little more challenging.
What a fascinating shift.
Mm-hmm.
I still carry a lot of cash.
Do you?
Well, not
for
a
that reason.
lot.
For that reason.
Partially, yeah. It's kind of how we trained ourselves a little bit. But I'll tell you, you're right. When you have a $100 bill and you break it, the rest just evaporates. It flies like smoke.
Yeah. That's right. It's like almost like it anchors it down. Then your wallet, the bigger the face value is.
It bums me out that I carry cash, and I do make a lot of grocery purchases and stuff with cash because I want my Delta Sky Miles, for my Amex. That is the point here.
That's right.
But I don't know. I just can't justify to myself buying something less than $10 on a credit card. Just not there.
And that's okay. I want to go back to Nate's formula for helping to eliminate financial anxiety. I bet part of your formula probably has something to do with your level of debt versus savings as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, how would you?
Yeah, I mean, I think
include that.
We may mention Dave Ramsey a time or two.
Yeah, that's okay.
But he talks
this show
about,
is not being sponsored by Dave Ramsey or Ramsey Solutions, but we love you, Dave.
Well, one of the things he talks about is getting to that place where you're sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I think all of those moments for us look different. But when you get to a place where you're like, all right, I got to get control of this, reducing debt and building wealth, that's kind of where this all starts. Because once you start to build wealth, that's when your stress and financial anxiety kind of starts to wane, and it doesn't happen overnight. Any area that you want to be successful in your life doesn't happen overnight, right? If you want to be physically fit, it's going to take time in the gym. If you want to become wealthy, you have to make little deposits over a period of time. Now, I guess it's possible you could get rich quick. That'd be amazing, right? Whether you...
They do it on TikTok all the time.
Absolutely.
You get rich quick. It's hard to hang on to it because you didn't learn how to manage it as you went.
Exactly. So I don't know if it's
not always long lasting. Yeah,
not a sustainable plan. But really, if you'll just confront yourself in the mirror and acknowledge that you're not a victim, that your choices are your choices and no one else's, and you want to approach money a different way, go ahead.
I was just going to say that I love that you compare this to maybe like a health goal. Okay. So when I'll sometimes do a cleanse to lose a couple pounds that have accumulated slowly over time. And when I start that cleanse, I'll have real quick results like in the first day or so. And then it really tapers off. And then, there's kind of sometimes a 1 step back and 1 step forward and 2 steps back kind of situation on the long haul. But I do remember when Maureen and my wife and I got real serious about getting out of debt. Like when we really sat down and said, okay, we're sick and tired of being sick and tired. Like we're not a victim. We've got to figure this out. Let's make a plan. We had $250,000 in consumer debt outside of our primary mortgage.
Wow.
At that time. And we were, I'm trying to think of exactly how old we were at the time, but we were like 25 years old.
Wow.
So it felt really overwhelming, but the fact that we'd never even added it up before, but just to add it up and to say, this is a problem. And for us both to agree to come up with a plan to reduce this debt immediately did reduce some of that financial anxiety. And then to see, that shift. I mean, we just had to get to a point where we were, not spending as much as we made every month. I mean, we were like going in the hole every month and our net worth was negative.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I pulled up, my app the other day that tracks my net worth, and it was saying that the amount of change since using the app had changed more than what my net worth was. Well, that's because I started tracking my net worth when it was negative.
Wow.
Right. So, but just starting to track it, starting to have that plan. And at least for me, my partner was on board and I wasn't alone. We both, kind of locked arms and said, okay, this is our goal.
So when I hired you as my investment advisor, you didn't tell me any of that.
Oh, yeah?
And you were amidst it.
I was right in the middle of it.
Right in the middle of it.
Absolutely.
That's hilarious.
Wow,
Yes.
that's amazing.
In fact, Nate, one of my favorite stories, you know this already, but Nate, one of my favorite stories is that he moved out of a house that he kept as a rental and he moved into his parents' basement. And I helped him. I helped my investment advisor move to his parents' basement.
That's so great.
But it's one of the reasons
He's a
I have
class
so
act,
much.
everybody. That's why. Class act.
It's one of the reasons I respect him so much. Like he took the bull by the horns, he and Maureen, and they just owned it. And we are taking drastic steps. Amazing story.
We wanted it. Yeah, we were sick and tired of being sick and tired. It took us years to crawl out of $250,000 in debt, let's be clear. But we just kept wanting to pick up the speed.
Yeah.
And married 2 kids, she's pregnant with our third. It ended up just happening on the day of our anniversary, our wedding anniversary.
Yes,
we move out of our first home into the basement of my parents'
2 bedrooms.
2 bedrooms. Yeah. Reed's helping us with his pickup truck. So I will admit, awesome, ladies and gentlemen, I did take her out to a nice dinner that night. Okay. But yeah, she always, brings up the story about, I can't believe you moved me into your parents' basement on our anniversary. So, but,
stress, financial anxiety. You just took steps to reverse it.
Yeah, exactly. And we're grateful for that journey and where it's taken us.
That's awesome. And I think we talked about this before you pressed record, but it took you guys getting serious to chase financial peace.
Absolutely.
And then in turn, it added peace to your marriage.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that's, Reed, you talked about financial anxiety. Your finances can flow into so many different areas of your life and add a strain on a relationship where, if you and your spouse decide, hey, we're sick and tired of being sick and tired, we're X amount in debt, we don't have to live this way. JC and I experienced the same thing. We were a little bit older than you guys. I think we were 30 when we first got exposed, kind of like the baby steps and all of that stuff. And we were not in $250,000 of debt. That's unbelievable.
Oh yeah, we were like experts. Like we never met a debt. We didn't try. Like all max out credit cards, furniture, student loans, everything.
But how cool, because look at where you are today. Because you guys decided, you're like, hey, we're not going to live this way anymore. Go ahead, Reed.
So I want to jump back a little bit, Nate. How is it that you got started thinking about these kinds of things? This is not what you do for a living.
No, it's not. This really all started related to mental health for me. Where my mental health was compromised just because of some life circumstances. This conversation isn't about that, so I won't dive in super deep. But just to say that anxiety, I became an expert because I had to navigate my own challenges with anxiety and depression. And I was so thankful that we had put these steps in place back in our early 30s when my wife was diagnosed with cancer. So one, we had life insurance. When you buy life insurance, you don't think you're ever going to need it. And I hope we never do.
That's
right.
Yeah.
My wife's doing great today.
That's
She's battled through her cancer journey and is doing phenomenal.
Awesome.
She's here today. She just took a picture of us through the window. But we had life insurance. We weren't in any significant amount of debt, other than our house. So there just wasn't that like, oh man, what if, worst case scenario, if I were to lose my wife, am I going to be wrecked? Not just emotionally, but also financially. And the answer was no. because of the things that we had done, and really the decade kind of leading up to her being diagnosed with cancer. And I always think through the lens of, man, what if none of that was in place, or we hadn't made those decisions? It would have made things way more stressful. And trust me, a cancer diagnosis in your house, you don't need any more stress whatsoever, because you want to be able to navigate the things related to health and doctors and making decisions, not worried about all the other stuff that
you need
comes
all
along
your capacity
with
for all of that stuff.
Yep. So when you and I were talking the other day, this kind of all started with Tim reaching out and saying, "Hey, we need to have an annual meeting and catch up about your financial goals." And he just kind of asked, like, what's been going on in your life? And I told him I'd started a podcast related to mental health. He's like, dude, that's crazy. Like, and we started talking about money and anxiety and how, the choices you make in your financial life can affect your mental health. You're like, dude, let's talk about this on microphones, let's, because it's so important,
Absolutely. And one of the questions that keeps going in my head about this is, okay, I have financial anxiety. Why should I do something about it? Why should I get to a point where either I'm on a plan or find somebody to help me get on a plan to remove the financial anxiety? Like, why? Like, we're really not even talking about a whole lot of the hows, but it's interesting that you just kind of shared a story that's an answer. Why have your financial house in order? Because what if something like this, what happened to you, happens? Then there's less anxiety financially because there's other things in place. There's savings in place. There's insurance in place, you know?
Well, and I think one thing we can be assured of is that things will happen in your life. And, hopefully no one you love ever goes through any sort of scary health diagnosis or anything like that. But there's going to be circumstances in our life when we don't want to have to worry about the financial component. Like, you just want that to be taken care of, because it's going to make the situation worse.
So I have found, to bring it down from the gravitas of JC being diagnosed with cancer, and I just we're so grateful that she's had such success in her healing journey there. But to come down from that, I will share something for me, and it was a Dave Ramsey baby step that has removed so much financial anxiety that relates to a lot of these things that you said, and that's having an emergency fund in place.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and they recommend 3 to 6 months of expenses. We generally recommend that's somewhere between $10,000 and $20,000 for most folks. It can vary, but I think this is a good range to be at. And I didn't have that when I had $250,000 in debt. So when we got that established, like you said, things are going to happen. The car's going to break down. Mm-hmm. The air conditioning is going to break. Hello, we live in Georgia. That's emergency, you know? And when you have the cash for it, instead of it being an emergency, it's an inconvenience. Like, when you have the money and you need to fix the car, it's still an inconvenience. But when you need to fix a car and you don't have the money, then now it's an emergency. Yeah. Because it's an inconvenience plus I don't have the money. And that has been just dramatic for me. And I having an emergency fund, like my emergency fund, there are a lot of times that it just stays there, but it's fluid often throughout the year because it's coming into play for things like that. You don't know when it's going to happen, but these things are going to happen. So to have a plan in place, I can't tell you, if a client's like, well, where do I put my emergency fund? I'm like, yeah, probably at your savings account at your bank that you have your checking account in. That makes the most sense. Well, I want to invest that emergency fund. I'm like, that is not the point of that money. That point of that money is to provide peace, financial peace, and reduce anxiety, and that that you have access to that capital like super fast. Everything else, you worked hard for it and you worked hard not to spend it, and it needs to work hard for you and needs to be invested in compound and help you reach some financial goal. But that's not the purpose for this emergency fund.
That's great.
So, but right now emergency funds can make like 5%.
That's true. That's true. Now we can actually make some good rates on it. But for the past 15 years,
I love 2023. This is great. I do remember, okay, this is going to sound really privileged, but we had a business and things were going along pretty well. We're pretty flush. We're like, okay, what could go wrong here with the business or whatever? Or maybe we needed to refund a customer or do whatever. And I remember one time my wife, and this was like because things were pretty flush, she said, if money can solve it right now, it's not actually a problem.
That is a Christy Trigoism, man. That's a good one.
That
Money
is
can
not
solve
always
it.
true. That's not always true.
Yeah.
But in that case, and really though, with health, we would consider like invaluable. If money can solve it, if money could buy your health back, well, then maybe you'd have to have a lot. But maybe it is not.
But it's hard because like cancer, it's not like you can just throw all this money on it and it's gone.
I know.
So it's a real problem.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I do want to come back into maybe some of the hows, things that you have done. You shared some. You had the life insurance and the retirement plan in place. But how are some other ways that you are? I almost like kind of think of like combating financial anxiety in your life. What are some things that you're doing in addition to that help to keep that at bay?
Yeah, I think one of the most tangible things you can do is just automate things. Because if you wait to save money till you feel like it, then you're not going to do it. Because you can always think of something else to do with your money than save it. Whether that's for, the emergency fund, like you mentioned, or investing it,
Or going to Vegas, that's an option.
Exactly. But, if you set things in place that automate, it's actually interesting. I do a little bit of mentoring where, I help guys that are younger than me just, make wise choices, in finances. And so him and I met. This was a year after we had kind of set up his 401k with his company. And, I kind of just helped him like, hey, you should invest in this. This is a 5-star mutual fund, this and that. He didn't look at it for a year. And then we met and he looked at it and his mind was blown.
Wow.
And I was like, dude.
He had lost so much money, huh?
Yeah. No, but he had automated something and hadn't even thought about it. And I don't even remember what the balance was. But it was way more than he thought, and he didn't even feel it. So if we put processes in place to automate things, we don't even have to think about it, and we're building wealth. And so that's just one tangible example.
Let me add to that real quick because I totally want to echo that because we do that as well. And it was actually literally last week I was mentioning to Maureen about the balance in our 529 plan, and she's like, we got that much in the 529 plan? I thought we were only saving, X per month. I was like, yeah, but we've been doing that for a while now. And, to get some good investments in the stock market. So like you just set it, forget it. I don't know if you had asked her 2 weeks ago if we had a 529 plan, if she would even know that we did, you know what I mean? But she's like, maybe. But all these kind of sinking, I for some reason, some folks call them sinking accounts or sinking funds, but automating them into these different things. And we do some stuff where it's like literally Fidelity automatically pulling that from our checking account. But I do some things even more like ahead of that with direct deposit. So with your paycheck, a lot of times folks just have their whole paycheck direct deposited into their checking account. But a lot of times they will take a percentage of, your paycheck and they can put it in other accounts. And so that has been, go ahead. What you got?
I didn't know much when I was young and dumb. But when I started working, I didn't make much either. But I had set up my direct deposit. Direct deposit was probably brand new then, due to my
brand new
advanced years.
Technology.
Yeah. But I could put $50 in my savings account, and the rest would go into my checking account. Kind of forgot I did it. And I remember a year or two later, I looked back and I was like, wait,
look at that.
There's money here.
It's crazy.
I'm going to buy something.
Money you didn't even miss
about.
created this thing for you. And automating is huge. Yeah. If you get paid, by a company, especially if they match, at least contribute up to that match and just don't even think about it, automate it.
Yeah.
I love this peace of mind, theme that you really kind of, started with. It's that peace of mind that you really are chasing, name of your podcast. I'm a podcast listener to Chase the Peace, by the way, big fan. You guys got to check that out. I want to talk about the insurance again, which we do not sell and never have at Goodwin Investment Advisory. But there are these things that you think about, like, what if something happens to me? Is my family going to be taken care of? What if something happens to so-and-so? And nowadays, like things like life insurance is so inexpensive. Just to remove that anxiety and that worry. One of the other things that we recommend that clients get are personal umbrella policies, liability umbrella policies. I think they're called PLUPs. If you put all those letters in the right word, personal liability umbrella policy, there it is, a PLUP. And again, we don't sell this, and it's not very expensive. I think the risk of somebody suing you and winning and getting access to a lot of times the equity in your primary home or even in retirement accounts can be protected either federally or at a state level. But still, the couple $100s a year it costs for $1 million or $2 million and a PLUP, the amount of anxiety that it can remove, just wonder, wow, if I make some mistake and somebody sues me and wins, all my hard work, all my savings, all my good decisions and investments can just be taken away from me. Even though the probability is so low, a couple $100s just helps to offset that.
Oh, that's
right.
Insurance is a transfer of risk.
It's a transfer of risk. Nice.
And if
are you an insurance salesman, Nate? That said like an insurance. Okay, you have some experience. Okay,
world. Yeah, but you're transferring risk, and it's worth every penny.
Yeah,
because of peace of mind, right? Yep. That's why the insurance marketplace exists, is because it's a transfer of risk to have peace about a particular thing. Whatever that is. And in our case, again, so thankful we had life insurance, in place.
So these are great. These are great plans. Very specifically, there were some notes I saw somewhere around us. It said, what do we do? What do we do? And not to go back to the basics too much, but it's kind of the basics. When it comes to financial anxiety, talk to someone. Live within a budget. Pay down debt. And save for the future.
Yep. That's nice. Very basically and well said.
Yeah.
No, I thought you were going to hit the button that was like the clap, the applause. It was like, yeah.
It's boring. It's boring.
Oh, that sounds boring.
So
I gotcha.
Old.
Old. I guess maybe what I could say could make that a little more exciting is, you need to do these things. And so as financial advisors, like in our purest essence, this is what we do. We remove financial anxiety for people. They have some anxiety. They're worried about, are they saving enough? Are they invested in the right things? Is that money going to be there when they need it? Can they retire? When all these things that they're worried, maybe they wouldn't call it stress or anxiety, but I think a lot of people would. And they know they need to reduce debt and save and talk to somebody, make a plan. But if they can just find somebody they can trust, find somebody whose values align with their values that they can trust, then that person or that team or that and the process of that company can hopefully come alongside with them and do those things so they don't have to just do their boring plan by themselves. So that's the shameless plug I'm going to give right there.
Absolutely. the uncompensated client, right, can speak to that. If you have someone that you can trust, not only to help you do the things, but to help you stay focused, Tim. I mean, that's what you do for us. That's what this meeting was today, because it's easy to lose focus because we all got a lot going on, right?
And he probably guaranteed you a rate of return.
Oh my gosh, Noah, cut that from the record. Uh-oh, it's going to get flagged for compliance. Oh boy, he said the magic word.
That's right. Well, and I think about, I'm a financial advisor. When I became a client, I wasn't really interested in all this stuff, but I've become interested in kind of a personal finance. I love this stuff. I don't know if I'm a guru about it. Pretty good with it. And I'm a financial advisor who has a financial advisor.
Yeah.
So,
everybody needs a second set of eyes on what they're doing. And I think, one of the other things I wanted to say is that, I think it's also important to know why it is that you want to be financially free and define what financial freedom is for you. Because, what Tim wants in financial freedom could be different from what I want. For me, being rich means that I get to do work I enjoy and people I enjoy working with. There's some who say wealth, the ultimate wealth for me is to have 100% control of my calendar all day, every day. That's what being wealthy is to me, right? So I think it's important to whether it's you come to a place where you're sick and tired, but define what it is that keeps you motivated, and keeps you focused.
Man, when he said that he wanted to get rich, I thought he was going to say he wanted to get ripped because, Nate's arms. Have you seen? He's a little ripped over here. So
this is all audio here. So
he has seen the inside of a gym.
Yeah. Recently.
Listen, hey, little deposits of time. Right?
That's right.
In every area of our life.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. No, I love that you defined, being rich as something different than just, kind of a balance sheet item. I wrote this small book called Exponential Wealth. And I started the book by defining wealth as a picture of that I have of just me and my wife sitting on our porch, sipping wine or a bourbon and watching our kids play in the yard, just having that peace and that feeling, and we're not worried, and our family's together and they're safe and they're playing and they're joyful, and I'm just relaxing, getting to talk to my wife on the porch with a nice bourbon. That's just kind of, to me, that's a picture of being rich.
Absolutely. That's so good.
All right. Well, great. All right. We're just about to wrap this up. Nate, what else you got? You got a couple other tidbits for us?
Yeah. I think we can all use to be challenged, right? And a lot of times, we touched on this earlier, you really have to be willing to look in the mirror when it comes to an area of your life that you want to be successful. We're talking about finances, So I would say really resist the urge to have a victim mindset, to fall into that trap that you're a victim. You're only going to make this amount of money that you're going to make. You can be and do whatever it is you want to do and whatever you set your mind to. And money is literally everywhere. If you have some debt that you need to pay off and you can't pay it off with your 9-to-5 job, then just drive an Uber a couple nights a week. There's just money is everywhere. Don't fall victim to this. Hey, I'm in a rut and I'm always going to be in this rut. You can be more. You can do more. You just have to decide to do it. You have all the power within yourself to make these changes.
Absolutely. And I would just add to mine, just don't go at it alone. 100%. Make that decision. If you're married, I highly recommend you try very, very hard to get your spouse on board to be that kind of accountability partner. But if you're not, you need to find somebody that cares about you, that loves you, and say, look, I am sick and tired of being sick and tired. I'm going to make this plan. I listen to this podcast, and Nate told me I can get a second job, so I'm going to get a second job, and I'm going to take care of this. But I just need to share with somebody that that's what my plan is, so that I can just say it out loud and have it written down, and maybe even having a little bit of accountability. So, and again, a lot of folks will hire us for that as well, to have somebody to partner with them, but you don't have to hire a financial advisor, but you do need to have somebody. I highly recommend that you have somebody that's holding you accountable, that knows what your goals are, that you've shared them with.
So good.
Nate, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, guys.
We really appreciate it.
It was my honor.
Yeah, we appreciate your time. Tim, thanks for being back on your podcast.
Absolutely. I always love it. You guys do a great job. I'm super excited to have Nate, man. We're grateful for your time.
Yep. And as financial advisors, we manage and rebalance portfolios, but the unique value is that we work to reduce financial stress for our clients by understanding their individual goals, so we can have these types of planning conversations that are so personal and unique to each individual. And remember, if you're enjoying the show, rate and review us wherever you get your podcast. And if you have a question you want us to answer on the show, email it to us at moneypig@goodwininvestment.com. And finally, this show is edited by my buddy Noah Davis. Thanks,
Shout
Noah.
out, Noah.
Man, thanks for listening. We will see you all next time.
The Money Pig Podcast is hosted by Reed Trigo, a financial advisor at Goodwin Investment Advisory. This podcast is intended to share information and perspectives, but should not be interpreted as legal, financial, or tax advice. The opinions shared by participants are not necessarily endorsed by the company. Goodwin Investment Advisory is regulated by the SEC, and the company operates in compliance with applicable securities laws and regulations.